I've been reminiscing, contemplating on how time played tricks on reality. Need a pro's vision. You was the apple of my eye till I finger pinched it. It never hurt to zoom out and see the bigger picture. What happens when you love it? But the growing pangs of growing up got us all growing different. Always to my own admission. Most times I'm somewhere between delusion and healthy living. You showed your true colors, I still gave forgiveness. But if I showed mine, I get killed by the witness. Thought that glass was half full till you started spilling. Conversations ice cold since I started chilling. The fall off is necessary. The hurt made me legendary. Now these songs be sanctuary. To the lovers and friends, the ones who loved and lost and loved and lost and flipped it off. Now they back loving again. At least until the summer begins. We all know how that story ends. Caught up in the cycle, my friends. Talk about the human experience. I pray one day we all get a grip. Until then, we just gotta live. And that don't mean to simply exist. You can't just let the soul disappear. You gotta add your own little twist. Yeah, you can trust in me. Yeah, the vision is clear.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Vizionary Rhetoric podcast. I hope that you've been enjoying Lifted Convos for Women's History Month. But, I thought it'd be fitting for me to get back into the solo thing as well. That has been such a joy for me. I want to stay here for a moment and just talk about that. First episode, I sat down with a dear friend of mine, Samara Weaver, excellent artist in different modes, but nonetheless, just a very, very great human being. That was a wonderful, wonderful episode, and the time was had. I was able to see a lot of stuff that I didn't see before in her home. That was an interesting experience. It was a learning curve. If you saw it, then at the end of the episode, you noticed that there were some technical difficulties. My camera, my phone actually died. And so I had to figure out, it taught me a lot, right? I'm so glad to have sat with her. We both share, the fact that we're neurodivergent. We talk about that all the time. And some of the difficulties that may come with that, trying to fit into a society that is not very understanding, even though they have more knowledge about this than they did even when we were kids and dealing with this. Luckily, we both had parents that were proactive about getting us the support and advocating for us on behalf of our child's selves. To make sure that they were, and when I say they, schools were treating us right and that we were in the appropriate school in order to have the most success that we possibly could. As I'm doing this and talking to you all, I'm actually leveling some things out at the same time. Haven't been on the solo side in a minute, so bear with me. But yeah, so we had the first episode with Samara Weaver. It's up now on YouTube. You can check that out. Tucker Media Nexus. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe there. Second episode was with a dear friend of mine, another dear friend. This is all for Women's History Month, by the way. Shout out to all the women out there making history, and shout out to all the ones who made history. But my second interview was with a dear sister of mine, Danily, and we sat down and we got to talk about the things that she does and who she is and how she became who she is, and that was a great time as well. I was far more prepared on the technical side. I've been using the new software, and it's proven to be good for me. So that is wonderful to kind of have the first experience be great interview-wise. I mean, Samara was such a great interview. I couldn't have asked for a better person to start that off with. She's just such an amazing, amazing woman to me, and very creative. And most of what she does visually, art-wise, is something I'm a fan of. And when I say most, I'm almost saying all. If I had the funds, I would probably be buying a whole lot of stuff. And when I get the funds, I will definitely be investing in my dear friend Samara. But second episode with Danily, got to talk a little bit about her career, her upbringing, coming from the DR, Dominican Republic. We got to talk about where she is now, and even a little bit about where she wants to go. That was great. And then third, two-part episode, easy two-parter, because me and my mom, we are thick as thieves, and we go together like peanut butter and jelly because we are very similar in the way that we operate. But that was wonderful with my mother, Andrea Tucker, and she just got to talk about, again, with all my guests, I always want to start off with where they started, right? The roots, the origins. and then move into their lives a little bit and figure out what philosophies they've picked up along the way in order to evolve into the woman. And then going forward, it'll be guest of all genders allowed to be on, but this was just a women's history run that I did. But yeah, just really figuring out how they became who they are today. So starting with the roots and moving into more current times for them. But yeah, sat down with my mom, and as my good brother Sai would say, you know, Levi always saying, Tucker always saying, my mom said, so y'all got to sit down and hear what my mom said. And she gave a lot of wisdom. In fact, her episode is titled Built by Wisdom, right? So yes, go check all of those out. Tucker Media Nexus on YouTube. It is the home of Vizionary Rhetoric Podcast, Lifted Convos, and To Be One, which there are some things coming for that soon. So stay tuned. Anyway, there's been a lot going on, right? We're in a conflict. I wouldn't call it a war because the start of it was very one-sided, much like other things that have been going on for a while. But, you know, U.S. with its current leadership has found itself in a conflict, and just like many conflicts throughout the history of time, those who are not as affected by it tend to be the ones that like to jump into them. So, you know, you have people making these decisions, and then we're going to get into that because this episode is really going to be about power. I'm going to talk a little bit about how power projects, but it doesn't perform. And what I mean perform is it doesn't perform for those who put them in the position of power. And so talking about that, and then talking about manufactured consent, right, through propaganda, and kind of telling us that, you know, we have to give a little to get some, and whatever it is, just to get us to go along with it, giving us maybe something that represents our core values, but at the same time taking away something or things or multiple things that represent the things that we need in life, right? So a lot of that we see with MAGA. We see the whole, you know, one or two things that they felt this particular administration represented, and so they held to that and decided to go a blind eye to the things that were just dramatically horrible to all humans within the United States. But all because maybe they espoused, you know, some Christian values, some conservative values, and they sprinkled it in, right? They put a little bit, I'll say in reverse. They put a little bit of clean, pure water in with some sewage water. And y'all took the bait for the little bit of clean water and said, oh, that's good drinking. Let's drink it up. And so that's what I liken it to, is like, most of it was sewage, but then because they poured a little bit of clean, purified, or, you know, fresh spring water in there, you know what? I want to stick with them because of that fresh water that they just put there. In reality, it's just still not good for you or anybody else, because most of us are not in the same position as the people making those decisions. So again, you know, we got a lot going on in the world, and we're at the center of it, which seems to be a theme. You got countries being hit because we have army or military bases in their country. So there's that, right? If I'm that country, I begin to look unfavorably on the United States if I didn't before, right? Before, we were the greatest military in the world, by far, nothing close. And some of you will say we still are. But now, you know, people are probably starting to look at us a little funny. Like, you're doing a lot of unnecessary things. And when I say you're doing, of course, I'm not making these decisions, but the 77 million people, I believe it was, that voted, plus people that voted for this, y'all kind of made a decision for this. He ran, both campaigns had one thing that was the same. At least one thing. And to me, that was, he was very adamant that war was not the way, that war was not the best thing for our nation, and it wouldn't be on his priority list. It actually, on his priority list, and what he said he was great at, is the art of the deal, to avoid wars and to continue to be trading globally. and to continue to have a good supply chain and to continue to build the economy, create more jobs. These are the things that he ran on. And we're seeing the opposite of this. And now what we're getting, and this is what gaslighting looks like. Well, we got to go through this to get to the other side. But he's not going through anything. His net worth improved with this administration. You can look that up. I'm going to tell you to look things up throughout this whole time, and you can try to, you know, if you want to debunk me, you want to do all that, whatever. This ain't a race thing either. This is the elites versus the everyday, ordinary American that feels every move that these people are making on a global stage, right? And the sad part is, when we talk in Congress, those people are people we put in position to represent us. Many of them have come out and said that they do not agree with the war that was started in Iran, right? Many have started to come out and say that. Many even MAGA people I've seen starting to be like, oh no, we definitely didn't want this. And this definitely wasn't a part of the agenda, because if it was, we would have been questioning it the whole way. The problem I have, though, with them is you fail to see that he is a loose cannon, period. He does what he wants to do, and his mind is deteriorating. You could see it vividly leading up to this term, and definitely in the first year of this term, that his mind is deteriorating. And honestly, I've seen medical people speak on it. They say north of 65, there is a decline that happens just naturally, right? And people are going to say, no, if you have a good diet and you do this and you can stay healthy, don't believe that stuff. Doctor say me this, doctor. And mind you, I definitely think that a lot of what like Dr. Sabi and naturalists and even raw vegan people are saying, I do think there's merit to it all. And if anything, they are sharing what worked for them. And if anything, I can say they're not gatekeeping. They want to give the information. I got a good friend of mine who I grew up playing ball with, who we've remained pretty cool with each other over the years. Not close, but cool with each other. I see him from afar. He's done well for himself. But one of the things that he is very, very big on is being raw vegan. Now, I don't know if he's still doing it. I don't know if he kept it as a lifestyle. I'm not sure. But I know at one point I saw he was going in with it. Fruits and vegetables raw. Don't cook them down. Don't do nothing. Eat them raw. Get all the nutrients that they have to offer, right? So he's in shape. The proof is in the pudding for him. Maybe not the pudding, but the proof is in the results for him, right? So he's in shape, and he's sharing that information. He's also a fitness guy, and a business guy, quite frankly. He's done well for himself, and I grew up with him. And what I can say is he never tries to make anybody feel a negative kind of way about not living the way he lives and choose to live, but he does offer advice and information about it, whether it be business, whether it be health, whether it be fitness, whatever it is. He'll give the information out. He doesn't gatekeep. And he shares the results. He gives you the good, bad, and the ugly of the journey. He gives it all. And I don't have a problem with that. The problem is when we look at, north of 65, one, you're in a whole different phase of life. In many cases, if you've done well for yourself, you're in or close to retirement. You're thinking about enjoying the third and likely final act of your life. Maybe fourth and final, if you want to consider like early childhood. I guess you should. It's a part of life. You're in a different mindset. So you're making decisions for people who are raising kids, but you're making decisions based off of what you think is best from the time you came from, when maybe you were raising kids, from when you were young and the things you wanted. Times are different. So I think the people that should be in the chairs at the table should be the people who have most of their life to deal with the outcome, right? Whatever he does right now, let's talk about that really quick. And this is before I ain't even into my message yet. But whatever he does right now, he will not have to see the ramifications. He would not have to see the results of the decisions he made. It's highly likely, and this has nothing to do with the unaliving attempts that people have, that they say people have committed against them. But then you hear this guy who was on the, I think it was like the anti-terrorist commission or something, who just stepped down and is now speaking against this conflict that's in Iran, and also speaking to the fact that there was no substantial evidence really that pointed to danger from Iran to make this conflict happen, or for them to go forward with the initial attack that they committed to start the conflict. And basically the information that they had, that no other world person, and there was another interview I just saw too. I think it was, I forget who it was, but it was a woman, and she was saying she's supposed to be a part of like the global threats committee. Let's call it that. Right. And you can look this up, and she's being questioned, and she said, and the guy questioning her, right. She's before like oversight committee, I believe. And he asked her, like, was it determined that there was a substantial threat for the U.S. to have to initiate an attack on Iran? And she's doing all this spinning and wheeling and dealing, and she's not really answering the question. He said, I asked this question and I need a yes or no. She kept saying, well, it's not his job to determine whether or not there's a global threat. It's just more so taking the information in that comes in from all across the world, and then determining whether there's a threat against the United States, or whether it's a threat against him or any other officials in this administration or whatever. And then going from there, he said, I just need a yes or no. He kept saying that. But his whole thing was, but was there, so basically what they were getting to cut that short, so I don't want to stick on that too long. What he was getting at was basically the decision to attack Iran was just based off of like, I just feel like doing it. And I'll just say that there was a threat. But then when we talk to world committee leaders around global threats and terrorism, they're saying there was nothing there about Iran that made any of us feel like we needed to attack them. So for him to do that, we don't understand why he would do that. And then you got BB getting up there saying that it's fake news that the United States is in this conflict because of Israel, that they dragged them in it, right? You get that, and just because you tell me it's not true, I don't know. The problem is this. Too many of you either agree wholeheartedly with how the IDF moves behind BB and how this administration is moving behind BB, and you take it at face value, or you agree with it. Like, let's start there. You agree with it. You stand firm and 10 toes with it, meaning you're probably of an ethnic and religious standpoint that you're in alignment, right? The second is you just take, and this kind of goes into the episode's topic when we talk about power and all that. You take everything that people who have power say at face value. You don't take it with a grain of salt. You take it face value, like what they say is good as gold, and I need to listen to that. And both two stances are a problem. If you agree with it, then you're actively complicit with genocide. If you just take anything that leaders say at face value and never question it and never examine it and never think critically about it and never have a comprehensive thought or thing to say about it, right? That's another issue, because then you become passively complicit, right? And some of you are playing a game. Some of you are really actively complicit, right? You agree with it from a biblical standpoint. And then there are some of you who are really, really just ignorant and just do as you're told, right? You have a lot of people who get on and say, if they just comply, like, to certain situations, or back in our day, people respected authority. They just respected, like, yeah. And back in your day, a lot of people their rights were violated by authority in different ways. We don't stand for that now. If you're abusive, if you're a person who is bigoted, if you're misogynistic, and you have an authority title within the confines of the power structure of particularly America, but even on a global stage, all those things negate any authority you thought you had. See, to me, authority is more related to responsibility. Power is more related to responsibility. When I see somebody who is highly responsible for the people who they are leading, that to me is the most powerful person, because power is a slippery slope, right? Remember Kanye said it, no one man should have all that power, right? That's a real thing, and I think we always have to examine that, right? And that's a good time to segue, so I don't ramble too much. But what I will say is I want to talk about a few things that happened before I segue into that, right? So yeah, put a pin on that, and I'll be back to that in a minute. I want to shout out centers, particularly Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler. You got you got what you deserved that night as far as your awards. Some things are probably left on the table. I think it was best picture, period, not just original screenplay. That's just me. Because the conversation, think about this for Centers, right? I'm not even going to go into talking about Center and the nuance and the dynamic between Smoke and Stack, and how, even if you want to really get technical, there was 3 characters that Michael B. Jordan played, because even Vampire Stack was slightly different than Stack, right? There was a different air about him as a vampire than there was for him as just a human. But neither here nor there. Whole cast was wonderful to me. I seen a critique that said that there's a problem, with just the plot and the story flow and everything. I don't see it, but hey, this person was really comprehensive, so I had to give him props, because I could tell he actually watched the movie, and I could tell he's into films. So shout out to him. And he followed me because I sincerely and genuinely said, like, hey man, good take. I never thought about these things, and I appreciate you for kind of lending your thoughts to this in a more comprehensive way. Some people took it as it was hate. Other people agreed because they hate it. So it's kind of hard. It's a slippery slope when you give a critique, I should say, of a movie, and then you have mixed, people interacting with that critique. So you have those who hate the movie, right, and just don't think they think it was overrated. And then you have those who love the movie. I probably lean more towards those who love the movie. And we see the critique. The initial reaction is like, man, you hating on the movie. But then we realize and settle down, like, well, no, this is just the angle and the standpoint. And he did say he still enjoyed the movie. He just said, here's some things that I see as holes. Here's some things that could have been better with the acting, with the story, with the flow, whatever it is you want to say, with the flow of the plot, anything you can think of. But my point is, Sinners was amazing. I believe it was best picture last year. They got it right with Michael B. Jordan. Best actor. They got it right with best original screenplay. Honestly, I think they could have sweeped. That's just me. Meaning all the nominations they had could have all been awards. I even see that the filmographer, the videographer, she got an award as well. Brilliant. It was a masterpiece. When we talk about art, visual art, it was excellent, phenomenal. It was so easy on the eyes. It was filmed so well. The lighting, even the way down to they did the makeup, right? All that stuff was wonderful. So shout out to Sinners. It's a movie that has sparked so much conversation. It covered so much. It covered history. It covered lore, talking about vampires, mythic kind of, level lore. It covered culture, right? It even covered losing a child. It even covered that. And one of the things that was a shining light, and I want to move into my episode topic and theme, because I don't want to hold y'all too long. That was a shining light in the whole award situation, was watching two things. Actually, it was 2 in 1, but it's the same kind of thing. Watching Michael B. Jordan thank his mom for the support that she gave him, right? In all of the award season, even in the other award shows they were in. His mom has been there, and she's there to see him win. That investment she put in, with the time she spent, with the affirmation she's given, with just getting him to auditions and things like that, and believing in the dream that he had from a kid, right? All that, she was able to be here to see him win. And I loved every moment of a black man giving his black mother praise and honor for all she did for him, because that's what it's all about. And he shouted his dad out too. One of the things my dad used to say, rest his soul, he used to always say, man, these guys, man, they always thinking they mom. And not all of them are just coming from single parents, right? Some of them have their dads in their life, but the dad is kind of, dads tend to be like this. I'm low key. I don't need any recognition. And, I'm cool. Your mom could be out front. I'm going to be here. I'm here. I'm supporting you and all that. But even taking the time out at the Oscars to shout his dad out, right, in that moment. Then we move into Ryan Coogler shouting his wife out. Wonderful. I love it. Black man doting over his black wife, right? And some of you are going to say, you ain't got no black wife. What you talking about? It doesn't matter. I love black love, period. And guess what? Even my marriage is black love because I'm black and I'm in love. But anyway, shout out to Center. Shout out to the cast. I appreciated what you put out. Delroy Lindo, amazing. Miles Canton, amazing. Haley Steinfeld, amazing. I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's Wunmi. Correct me if I'm wrong. Amazing. Everybody was amazing. I'm drawing a blank on the rest of the names, but everybody in there was amazing, right? My guy who played Cornbread and Pearline, I'm drawing a blank on y'all names. Why? I don't know, because I do know y'all names. But I'm drawing a blank. Charges to the ADHD. Mine's all over the place. All right, let's move into it, right? I talked a little bit earlier about power, projecting versus power, performing. And so I want to kind of set the stage and really frame what I mean by that, right? So this first segment, you can call it how power projects, right? So we're kind of holding projection and performance against each other, right? We're looking at them from the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And first, projection is a polished image. Think suit, tie, clean haircut, no tattoos, speaking a very, very proper English, right? Some of us in the black community we'll say, man, you talking like a white boy. You talking like a white girl. That's a whole nother issue in and of itself. But think along those lines of like proper speech, suit and tie, at the very least a polo, a clean and crisp polo shirt, not polo the company, but just a polo style shirt. Hair in place, trim for men, trim beard or bald if you can stand it, and just a nicely shaped up mustache. So definitely not like what I have going on right here, right? You have what else? Traditional education, right? So having a degree, we've seen that kind of fade a bit because the trades have picked up. But these are things you can think out when you think about projection. I have it all together. I have all the answers. I have the accolades. I have the education. I may have a little experience, but if not, I know how to make you feel like, right? This is how like realtors tend to talk to you. This is how car salesmen tend to talk. They tend to talk to you in a way like, I'm the expert and I'm going to help you get exactly what you need, and it's going to work out in your favor. And in reality, they're trying to make the sale. It's no different than those who have power. When we talk about the government, when we talk about those who control the infrastructures around us, whether it be economic or anything like that, it's no different. They have to convince us that they know best and that they have our best interest in mind until it's too late. That's what it comes down to. And so that's the projection piece, performance, what is actually delivered, right? Healthcare is a big issue in our nation, right? Many of us are like, there's no reason for the greatest nation in the world to be struggling with healthcare. And when we bring up universal healthcare, the first thing that they throw at us is that socialism or communism, as often confused for socialism, is just bad. There's no other discussion about it. It's just bad, period. And we shouldn't be looking to implement any kind of socialism. Actually, we have socialism. We should be looking to dismantle the socialist structures that even exist today. So, like, of course, you could just think the welfare system is socialist. Public education is socialist. There's always been agendas to tear that down, though, especially coming out of the conservative camp. There's always been agendas to tear down public education, and there's always been agendas to tear down what we would call social safety nets. Right? There's always been agendas for that. The problem is this. They keep saying if we take those away, we can lower taxes and all that kind of good stuff. And that sounds good, right? Many of you would love to see more money coming in on those paychecks. So you would love it. I know Delaware County right now, that's the biggest gripe that we've had is that I think last year it rose 23, 24%. This year I think it was like 19%. And so I fact check me if you want, but I know it was up there, right? And they're blaming the Democrats who just got the majority in, let's say, 2019. And so prior to that, I was just talking to a good brother about it. And I've talked about it before. I got a video for it. You can check it out. Prior to that, 150 years or a century and a half, the lion's share of most of that time, I would say if not all, Republicans ran it. And part of the reason why taxes have risen so drastically over the last like 2 years is because taxes haven't risen enough over the past, let's say, 30, 40 years here in Delaware County. But again, that's another, and I'm sure somebody's going to see the video. And if this gets clipped out, if this becomes one of the clips, I know somebody's going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. The Democrats ruined this county and all that kind of stuff. I get it. You guys got to chill out. Those who know. But anyway, performance, what is actually delivered, right? I could tell you all this stuff, right? And so when we talk about delivery on a social standpoint, right, we put a person in office, representative, senator, whatever. And we put them there because in their campaign, they listen to people. People were concerned about certain things. They said that would be a priority of theirs to push. And so we put them in office, and then they get there, and then they get lobbied. And so then you got lobbyists that come in and spend billions of dollars yearly. Look it up. Billions of dollars yearly to lobby government officials for whatever. It's all quid pro quo. Funding campaigns. Giving access to be able to invest in. Right? Those things happen. You got big tech last year, first 9 months. How much do you think they invested in lobbying? $50 million in 9 months. That's just the first 9 months. $50 million. And we know many places across this world are fighting, or across this nation, are fighting against data centers going up. And data centers drain natural resources, mainly fresh water. Because once the fresh water is used to cool a data center, it can no longer be used. It can't be recycled. It can't be used as drinking water. It can't even be used to nourish plant life because it has become waste at that point. So it turns one of our most precious, actually probably the most precious natural resource, it turns it into unusable waste. It can't be refreshed. It can't be filtered. It can't be brought back to life. It's dead. It's waste. And we need that as people. We need fresh water. So it's dangerous. But they're lobbying. And most of the lobbying is probably geared towards loosening or eradicating regulation. That's probably what it's going to. It's like, hey, loosen up these environmental regulations that are on us right now so we can do our thing, so we can push this forward. And they're saying, and they're propping up things like AI. They're propping up things like just advancement in technology as good for people. And in some cases, I don't disagree, because it helps in different industries. It helps in the medical realm. It helps in education. It helps in finances. Definitely helps in business. And you might want to marry business and finance together. It helps in everyday life for people. So there are good things about it, but we have to find a way for it to also be sustainable, because we can't be tearing down an environment, right? Think about this. If all those things make our lives better, but they're causing a deterioration of a natural resource that we all need as humans, then is it worth it? I would rather be considered primitive than to have a world where we're struggling or we're having to create water, right? Everything they do now is all synthetic anyway, right? With the food and the process that they put food through, and how they're even able to keep up with the industry that they have, the types of methods they use to create even livestock or product that is supposed to come from livestock. Like I saw like 3D printed meat and just stuff that you're just like, what? Even the FDA, like loosening regulations, and not everything FDA approved or stamped or, certified is something that's actually good, right? Because think about it, like McDonald's and Burger King and Chick-fil-A and all those places are FDA approved, right? But if you eat all those places every day, that's not going to be good for you. And I'm not going to say another place because that's where I'm from, so I'm going to leave that place out. But any of these kind of fast food places, they're all FDA approved. They have to be. They all go under the Board of Health and all that kind of stuff. They have to. But that's not saying the food is good for you, or that the process that is taken to prepare or preserve the food is good for us as humans. It's just saying it is. So if technology is supposed to help us evolve, and it's supposed to help us advance, it's supposed to help us overall just make life more simple and better, it can't also, right? It's kind of like the person who is a philanthropist, right? But they're also an otherist. It doesn't matter. The philanthropy doesn't matter if you're into the other stuff. Right? Right? So it doesn't matter. If you do anything to harm people, violate people, right? You can't just wash that away because, well, I do good over here. Doesn't matter anymore. Same thing with these data centers specifically. If it is diminishing probably the most, like I said, important natural resource we have, which is water, if it's diminishing the supply of that in our country, in the world at large, because this affects the whole world too, then we have to re-examine. And we have to be not creative about how we approach losing fresh water. That's not where people, oh yeah, we need to figure out how we can manage, because we got to keep this thing progressing. We got to keep the technology moving forward, right? No, we need to figure out how can we cool these data centers off without using fresh water, right? How can we do that without using fresh water? Because people, we need fresh water, right? So that's the approach. But yeah, big tech. And you know what they're going for. Deregulation. Because the regulation is the only thing that's standing in the way of most of these data centers. And some of them are going up. But it's the regulations. It's the regulations. And they keep saying, oh, no, this is going to also create jobs. We know how that's going to go. They're already talking about AI kind of running everything. It's an AI data center. Come on now. Don't be boo-boo the fool. Don't be boo-boo the fool. Don't let them project positive for, or net, let's call it net positive for the people. But when they've always performed the opposite. They've always performed the opposite. Find a way for billionaire corporate entities in their corporate entities to make more money. They still lay people off. They still play games like, hey, I'm gonna lay you off here, pick you back up on the other side of the new year. They still play games. And here we are saying, if you let them make as much money as they can or want to make, they'll make more jobs. That's never been the case. That's akin to trickle-down economics. That's never been the case. You can look that up. There's never been really a correlation between billionaires making more money with their corporations and them creating more jobs. No, that's just more money. That's just more money for them. They ain't like, I have all this money, much more than I ever imagined making. Maybe I can help people out and give them decent salaries to continue my business on. That doesn't happen. It doesn't. It becomes maybe a bonus for senior level leadership. And they get, the most benefit from the hard work of the people who work under them. That's just the reality of things, right? So the projection is, you let us make more. You let us control more. You let us be the all-powerful. And what I'm going to get into later, the all-powerful Wizard of Oz. You let us be that, and all will go well. You'll get your heart. You'll get your mind. You'll get your home. If you let us be the all-powerful. And don't question it. Don't peek behind the curtain. But I'll get into that later. So, because of this lobbying, you have revolving doors. You have government officials, former officials, who end up on boards at these companies who they helped out, right? Right, because they were lenient towards these companies. They end up getting hired. So maybe during their term, so this is the game, right? Just like during your term, you can't, use your position to make money over here and do that. But the game is, it's waiting for you. It's waiting for you. This is why you can see, like, oh, they don't get paid that much. Oh, they're doing this out of the, passion for the people and all that kind of stuff. They don't get paid that much. No. Make no mistakes here. All deals aren't up front. A lot of deals are back end. Like when you're done. When you're done, especially if they're doing things blatant, right? And the people are in their districts and stuff are paying attention and their states are paying attention. If they do stuff blatantly, they might not get more than one term. But if they can make that deal that sets them and their family up, they don't care. They'll go back to being a judge of elections. If they even want to do that. All they know is, when I'm done with this, whether it's in one term or two, when I'm done with this, my kids going to be able to go to any college they want to go to. They're going to be able to start whatever business they want to start because of the connections I made and the deals I made. They're going to be able to buy a house once they get of age, or I can buy a house for them right now, right? I could buy a house in another country. They live in large. And a lot of these people who get voted into these positions, these officials, this is how they operate. They project, we are for the people. We come from the people. We are the people. We have just been chosen to be in this seat so we can represent. They project that, but their performance is selfish. It's selfish. So what happens is this. All that happens is you have the few becoming wealthier, right? So right now you got 1% hold 31% and some change, 31.7% of the U.S. wealth. That is alarming. If you hear that and that doesn't alarm you, if you hear that and say, well, they earned it, how did they earn it? They wouldn't have been in position if they didn't convince people who they were meant and who they said they would represent, that they would represent. If they didn't convince them that they would represent them, they wouldn't even been in a position to make those deals. And then on top of that, it's a double whammy. It's like they went out and got their own, but then they're allowing these people to deteriorate our natural resources in a data center sense and focusing on big tech, because that's a big thing right now. So we have to think about this in a real way, right? In a real way, Brodusky, we got to think about this, right? And the next thing we'll talk about is like manufacturer consent. That's how all of this even is possible. This is how they're even able to do these things, is that manufacturer consent. It's like we're going to do it anyway, right? But we got to create a scenario where you go along with it. And that starts with, and this comes from the Chomsky/Herman propaganda model. That starts with ownership concentration. Then it moves into advertising pressures, government and corporate sourcing, right? One of the biggest things, I want to stop at that point. One of the biggest things that we hear from the conservative side and mindset is that private is better because private improves the quality of product and service, right? And it creates a scenario where people, everyday people, get an opportunity to rise up. This is why everybody's against socialism, because they see it as a across the board thing. They really misunderstand it, but they see it as they're really describing communism when they describe socialism. But they see socialism as this thing that's like, oh, well, nobody will ever be able to rise above a certain, standard. And then there's going to be a certain people who control everything at the top. And I'm like, that's exactly what our system looks like right now. It's exactly what our system looks like right now. It's just under capitalism, right? It's under capitalism, but it's exactly what our system, like when they describe it, I'm like, oh, so like it is right now, like how we live right now. And no, communism, you just wouldn't be able to rise. Look at Cuba, look at this. And they start pointing at these places that they say are the worst examples of what communism is. But I'm like, but then we could point at America and say, like, this is the worst example of what capitalism is. And many economists would espouse that. They would say, yeah, this is not really the, like, purest way of of what capitalism is. Like, there shouldn't be really any government meddling, right? In a true, like, open market. But there's this entanglement, this government corporate sourcing kind of entanglement that happens. And nothing is completely private because the government is involved. So when we go back to the car crisis where they bailed the car industry out, they bailed the banks out, that was with taxpayer money. And so where is the people who should be yelling and shouting that private entities should have to take care of their own when that happens? Oh, no, most conservatives I know a lot of conservatives. I'm a Christian, so I do know a lot of conservatives, both my generation and the generation who raised our generation. Most of them, they got to take care of those industries. They can't let that fail. But nobody has that approach to education. I wonder why. Because nobody's getting their palms greased or their hands washed by education. There's no money in education. There's no money in it. All education has been traditionally, or historically, I should say, has been a mode to train more people to operate within an economic system to provide services or produce goods in that system. So to be a cog in the wheel. That's all it's been used for. But it's really hurt because education requires an investment, whether that's tax money, whether that's grants, which also comes from tax money. But it requires investment, but there's really little yield outside of the employee pool that is created based on education. So they don't feel that way about education. They don't feel that way, definitely don't feel that way about welfare, right? Nobody ever says you got to look, they had to shut down. There was only a small group of people that was like, yo, we can't do that. There's going to be millions of people who are affected by this. We got to figure out a way to get this back up and rolling. They were using it. They don't care. They care so little about those people that need those resources. And I'm not laughing, just so you know. I'm chuckling because it's so clear to me. So I chuckle sometimes when things just click. And they've always clicked like this. But they care so little about the people who need those resources. There are people, believe it or not, most people aren't gaming the system. Hear me out. Believe it or not, if you see gas is over $4 in some places, ours is here in PA in Delco. I seen some stations right there at the $4 mark, and I'm sure some have jumped over, right? How much you spend to fill your gas tank up impacts your financial picture. And they care so little about the people who actually need it, which is most. Even the working poor. People always have this idea that people on welfare aren't working. This is another thing projected out, right? Right. This is another thing that if a person is financially stable, the projection, that's the other thing that people in these positions put out there, right? Because imagine putting in a person who has admittedly said that I've struggled. Imagine that. Imagine that, right? Imagine they say, I'm going to put a person in office that admits that they have financial struggles. Right? I'm going to do that because they understand financial struggles. Now, that makes sense to me, but that's not how we see it. We always put the out-of-touch people, and in my mind, I'm thinking about the people who live on the main line, some people that live in media, Swarthmore. Nothing against y'all, but y'all are so out of touch. The people who live in Chester, the people who live in Prospect Park, the people who live in Darby, the people who live in Upper Darby, the people who live in Philly. You're so out of touch. So if you're representing an area that has people, more people that live like people in those areas that I mentioned outside of media and Swarthmore, if you're the one who has to represent them, if you don't have a big heart for those people and have empathy, not sympathy, not pity, but empathy for those people, how can we expect you to represent us in a comprehensive way? We can't. The answer is we can't. You just don't understand. Unless you build a team, a diverse team, right? And you have to have a certain level of awareness to even go there. Because most people who are well-to-do, who come from well-to-do lines, just think, because my family has had money this whole time, because my family has been what America would deem as successful financially, I have all the answers. And I can prescribe all the resolutions to these issues because my family has done well for themselves. Actually, that makes you the least qualified. I would rather get a highly educated, and it doesn't mean that they went to college or anything like that, just an educated person, somebody who likes to read, somebody who does the knowledge, somebody who does what they got to do to know what they need to know. That's what I'm talking about when I say educated. I would rather have a highly educated person who comes from humble beginnings, poverty even, home insecurity even, people who have come from those places. They really know what needs to happen for people who are still in those places. So I would rather have a highly educated person that comes from that trajectory than to have this person who has like old money, or a person who just money after money and never dealt with demographics that they'll be representing. I would rather have that person, right? I don't need the prestige of, oh, I come from this family and we're going to run this, and yes, my family's successful and I'm stepping in to be the, you're talking about you so far removed, right? All these kids that's growing up and their parents own businesses, well-to-do businesses, or just like old money businesses that's been around forever. And we have that in Delaware County. All these people, right? They just hand the leadership down to their well-to-do silver spoon kids. And unless those kids went to college, now this is where college is a good thing, because college is where you'll intersect with people from all walks of life, right? If they didn't go to college, or if they didn't intentionally get around some people that were different than them in appearance, different than them than religion, different than them than socioeconomic status, right? If they don't intentionally do that, then they won't be able to effectively help these people. So spare me that. Anyway, you got people that when you step out of line, when you talk like I do sometimes, when you come against the traditional what they would call middle class, but I would say actually upper class values. Used to be middle class, but I'll say these are upper class values. They flog you. It may not be physically, but you get in trouble. You get put back in place, right? Pat. Hey now, get it together. We can take everything, right? We don't care nothing about that. This is the agenda. It's always been the agenda, and you better keep that agenda going. Because if you don't, we'll take everything from you. And that ain't enough. If you don't quiet down, not only will we take everything from you, we will work our hardest so that you can't get it all back. Because we know you're dynamic. And we know that if we just take it and then send you off, you'll be back in some way, shape, or form. But we need to also tear you down. This is why, to all my brothers and sisters specifically, do not engage in degeneracy. If you have an ounce of desire to be degenerate, work on that now. Go to therapy, because if you get elevated, they will bring it to you. And they're only bringing it to you because they're degenerate too. They're really bringing it to you so that they can collect data. They'll go with you to commit all forms of debauchery, but they might not engage. But if they have enough power, maybe they will engage to make you feel comfortable engaging whatever that debauchery is. But you have to be. This is the problem with our elite, with our black elites, right? The people who consider themselves probably to be the talented 10th. They want to be so much like the ruling elite, who is predominantly white, that they engage in these same activities that we're seeing pop up in the Epstein stuff, or even stuff like Harvey Weinstein, and using your position of power to violate people's autonomy, to violate people's safety, to violate people's personal space, right? Using your power to coerce people into doing things that they would never want to do if they didn't think it was attached to some dream they have, or attached to access to power and opportunities that would help elevate them in some kind of way, especially if it's money related and they're not from a well-to-do family and don't have a lot of resources. You have to do the work now, because once you get to a certain level in whatever field you're in, whatever, whatever you're doing, they're going to come to you with the debauchery. Now you have to have a resolve that you don't want to be a part of that. And you're a human being. And this is the reason why I'm saying, if you have any inclination in you that you might want to be involved in some type of debauchery, you need to work on that right now. There's somebody that's going to watch this, that you're on a pathway up. But you got to remember, when you get to upper rooms, everything is about leverage. It's about leverage. They may let you in the room, but they need the parachute cord to pull in case they don't want you there anymore. They need the ejection button. That's a better way of putting it. They'll let you in. They'll put you in flight, but they need to have a remote ejection button. And that often comes in the form of debauchery. It often comes there. So you have to have a resolve. And you having that resolve may end up in you being kicked out of the room because you won't join in. But I assure you, if you have a resolve in that you don't want to be a part of that, and you make sure that that is a deal breaker for you, you won't care if you get kicked out of a room full of degenerates when you find out. You won't care. You'll be like, yep, I don't even want to be in this room. So, all right, I was going to leave anyway because y'all tripping, right? And then, so like, you get that right, but if you keep going, they treat you like an enemy, right? They control a narrative around it, right? Especially if you don't fall for the, hey, come do this. This is what we get into. This is what, and you don't get all into that and thinking, well, man, this is what it's like to be whatever. And then you doing drugs and you doing this and you doing that and you with this person and that person, and clearly seeing that this person, let's just take it away from the Epstein style stuff. Let's just say it's a woman. You clearly see she don't really want to be there, but this guy's like, yeah, you can, go da-da-da-da. Vice versa. It's a man, you can tell he clearly don't want to be there. he may feel, it may look like he feel like this is a job or he has to be there or it's supposed to be his job, but he's being asked to do something he don't want to do. If you're a woman or a man, and you say, yeah, I ain't engaging in that. So either way it goes, you have to have a resolve that when you get there, right? Because that's the tricky part. People will tell you, you know, you'll think, oh, I'm powerful now. I see this in a lot of black elites. I'm powerful now. Now you're hearing all this stuff about them because they didn't turn it down. And they thirsted to be just like white elites instead of doing it differently, instead of doing it in a way that was attached to their community, instead of, you know, checking their spirits and their souls to make sure they don't get involved. Now, I'm not saying that that getting there is what caused them to go into that, right? I think that a lot of times this stuff is inside of a person again, but you got to be doing the work. People call it shadow work, inner work. You got to be doing the work. You have to be doing the work, because then you walk into situations that you never experienced, and you don't have a grid to even have a thought of how you would respond to a proposition. You don't even have a thought. All you can think of is, I don't want to lose my spot. I don't want them to think they got to ice me out. Everybody else is doing it. If I don't do something, they're going to be like, man, we got to get him out of here because he ain't doing nothing. So he's going to like report on us. It's all games. It's all leverage. It's all, yeah, this is what we do. And for us to be comfortable around you, now that you know we do it, we need you to do it too. So that if you try to say something, we could be like, oh, that's cool. You was there too. Oh, that's cool. We'll just have so-and-so come forward and tell the world what you was doing. That's all right. And guess what? As soon as we tell what you was doing, they're going to forget about what you said we was doing, because we the ones with the real power. Then you got the purpose of filters, right? In this scenario, shaping narratives to support elite interests. That's it. That's it. This is why, not saying I agree with Diddy. I don't. I believe he is exactly where he is. I believe everything that is supposed to happen to him happened to him. Maybe he may even got a little grace and all of that. But this is why they was willing to throw him under the bus so quick. They said, yo, throw this dude under the bus. That's why we can't do it the way, we can't long for power the same way that they have had power, one. And we can't do the things that they were doing. One, it's just wrong. Let's just say that. It's just, those things are just wrong. Wrong. Hard stop. Wrong. Period. Absolutely wrong. At every level. At the top, at the bottom, completely wrong. That's one reason why you shouldn't do it. That's the main reason why you shouldn't do it. The second reason is, it's a trick. Again, it's like I said, we need you to do the things we do so that if you try to tell what we do, because maybe you have a conscience and you say, man, that was wrong, then we'll say, hey, you could expose us, but we'll just expose you too. We'll just expose you too. And we'll embarrass you too. Not only will you be seen as this horrible monster who committed these acts against people, but you'll also be embarrassed because we'll talk about the things we did to you. So let's not even talk about that part of it. But anyway, came through that manufacturer support, right? Or should I say consent? Just to go over it again, the media is being filtered by ownership concentration. We just saw Paramount just bought all of these media outlets, including news outlets, and it's connected to the leader of this administration. So there you go. Ownership concentration. They X Netflix out. The rumor is because Netflix works with the Obamas and all that kind of stuff. And is considered to be more liberal, left-wing leaning in their approach, right? I don't see them as that. I think they just are a media outlet just like any other streaming service is. They just put content on there that is either coming under their production or has already been in production, or been out, or is coming out and will end up on the platform. But again, these are the moves that they make when they feel a certain way, and they do that. But yeah, consolidation, right? You have a few owning all of the media. You got advertising pressures. You see it every day. You see it every day. If it's campaign season, you see more of a certain candidate than you do another, depending on where you're at. You see more, and you know that they're being funded more by the media in that area. And on that same media, whether it's Fox or ABC across the country, you might see in a different area because of the areas and the impact of that person, but you see the one candidate more, right? Depending on where you at. You got the government corporate sourcing. It's just kind of entanglement, like I said. You got the flack punishment. Pat, get back in place, right? The prod. All right, now, you deviating, get back. You got the enemy / framing. So if I can't control you, right, now I got to create a narrative, and I got to make everybody, or as many people as possible, feel like you're an enemy to the American dream. You're an enemy to the way of our country. You're an enemy. You're not patriotic. Oh my goodness, I hold this flag near and dear to my heart. Let's go to other countries across the world and ask them how they feel. I don't care. This is America. Right? That's how y'all act. And anybody that doesn't act that way is an enemy of the state. That's how y'all treat it. That's how y'all treat it. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to take a pause really quick at this point in the video. I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and I look forward to you getting to experience the rest of it. But I'd be remiss without asking you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Oh, and hit that notification bell too. That way you'll know when new content from Tucker Media Nexus through Vizionary Rhetoric, Lifted Convos, or 2B1 is being uploaded. Please tap in, please support, and have a great one, beloved. But anyway, let's move into the Wizard of Oz and how that ties into all of this, right? Let's start with the Yellow Brick Road. The Yellow Brick Road, like gold, the gold standard, or the journey towards the gold standard, which is the Wizard of Oz, right? This is how I'm breaking it down. So this is not like, oh, I saw this and this is how I process it all, right? Symbol of hope and a path to empowered leadership, right? The Wizard of Oz, the all-knowing, the all-powerful Wizard of Oz, right? This is who they thought that they needed to get to in order to get the things that they were looking for, right? And so let's talk about the character needs. Dorothy, she needed to get back home, right? That's what she was looking for. She needed to get back home. And in that, there's belonging, right? So associate home, as I had this conversation, with belonging, right? That's Dorothy's story. The Scarecrow, he wanted a brain, discernment, the ability to be aware of things, right? That's what he wanted. The Tin Man, he wanted a heart, compassion. He didn't want to be so cold, pun intended. Tin Man, cold, yeah, you get it. I'm a dad now, but he wanted a heart. The Lion wanted courage, which was moral bravery. All these characters possess these things. That's much like us, individually and collectively. Many of us possess the power that we place into the people who become officials, senators and representatives, Congress people, up into president, right? Many of us possess the very qualities that we see in these people, but we don't have the courage and we don't have the fortitude to say, I'll do it. Because I'm the one that knows why this is needed. I'm the one that knows how to get this done. I'm the one that wants to stay rooted and connected to my people, right? So I'll do it. The Wizard's character, the Wizard was a projection, literally. The Wiz or the Wizard of Oz, however you want to look at it. It was a projection, right? That's what it is. It was just a projection. And it presented in this kind of like powerful, scary thing. It was like scary, right? We kind of see, that's how we look at greatness. We kind of look at greatness like, man, it's scary. Oh man, they're so great. Oh man, it's like this reverence, right? The fear is more in a reverence way, but it's like you're almost a little afraid of that. You're almost scared of that, right? Because they're so powerful. They're so great. I can't imagine. Man, they deserve to be in that position. But you never examine, why do I think that person or that group deserves to be in a position of power? Right? What have they actually done to show us that they are responsible, intentional, one, and that they're not above accountability? What have they done to show us that? And in reality, the Wizard of Oz, or whether we're talking about the Wiz, and in reality, the man controlling that particular projection was just a scared small man who didn't want anybody to find out. Isn't that much like who we're discovering are the people who control the resources, the opportunities in this country and in this world? They're small people, not physical, right? Because, I mean, I know y'all boy, y'all, that's one of the things you like, you know. He's considered himself to be, I think, one of the biggest, as far as height and stature, presidents. He loves that about himself. And I even see his children are pretty tall, including his youngest, who's, I think, north of 6'6", maybe, and that may be underselling it. But they may be tall. They may have a certain frame and stature, but morally, spiritually, and even mentally in most cases, because just because they may be niche intelligent, right? They're intelligent for the circumstances that they're in. And if you're wealthy, you have a very limited scope. And so you couldn't do the things that people I know who even grew up in a lower socioeconomic status than I did. You couldn't do the things they needed to do to survive. You couldn't do the things that they needed to do to have a good time. It was easy as pulling out a car for you. That's just the facts. But anyway, just a small, scared man. That's all he was. You know, that mirrors what the modern elites are. Like I said, great in appearance, hollow in substance. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not talking about physical. That representation of having him be a small, scared man behind this big projection, to me, is representative of the substance or lack thereof with those who consider themselves to be elites in the modern era, right? And so, quick question. You have to think, you know, we grew up and they said, watch the company you keep, right? I've heard people say, I've heard a saying that goes something like, if you're hanging around, let's say 9 fools, then you're the 10th. And this is how I'm going to say, if you're hanging around Jeffrey Epstein, right? If you're going to his island, right? And he committed horrifying crimes. So he's a horrific criminal. Then what does that make you? What does that make you? And I know people can say, oh, just because you've been around Epstein or they've been around Epstein doesn't mean that they were doing what Epstein was doing, or even with some of the other people. But it was known what he was up to. This was not a secret. It wasn't a secret to most, but it definitely wasn't a secret to the wealthy elite. So again, if you hang around 9 criminals, right? I'm talking about hang around in documentation several times, in communication several times, not just here's the text that they were sending here's an email that they were sending during this time and the stuff that they try to nitpick. They always try to, it's funny, they try to elevate, when I say they, the supporters of this administration are trying to elevate people who had the most minimum interaction with this man over the people who have thousands and thousands of interactions with this man through different modes of communication, through face-to-face interaction, through hanging out, partying, to going to the island, right? They're trying to elevate these people who they don't like and say, yeah, they sent the email to him. Yeah, they text them. Yeah, they did this. It's like, but we're losing the plot. We're losing the plot here, right? You know, it's not clocking, as y'all like to say so corny. It's not clocking to you, right? Like your boy Justin, but you're losing the plot. If you hang around 9 criminals, if you hang around 9 PDF files, what are the chances that you aren't the 10th? What are the chances? I don't know. I feel like the odds are small since y'all like to gamble. Again, with the degenerate and debauchery, degeneracy and debauchery. Since you like to gamble, I feel like the odds are small that you aren't one of them. If you're really hanging around them, if we really have clear evidence. So really, as people who are not in that circle, right? Why are you supporting anybody who's showing up in that? Why are you still standing 10 toes? I see so many people posting what they claim are righteous, good things that Donald Trump is doing. I see so many people posting that, but they have been silent about his presence in them files. And some of these people got kids. Some of you got kids. Kendrick said it best. You moving just like a degenerate. Every move is feeling distasteful. He said it best. But to move on, modern wizards. That's anybody that's been around Epstein. That's what I would say is a modern wizards, relating it to the Wiz or the Wizard of Oz, right? Listen, wealth does not equal wisdom. Because if wealth equal wisdom, there would be nobody in those files. Because there are tremendously wealthy people in those, like terribly, terribly wealthy people in those files. So wealth equal wisdom, right? Or status equal morality, that's an even bigger one. There are people of what we would consider to be great status. They stand in as way off because they in them files. So they stand in as way off. Right? Way, way off. But wisdom doesn't equal wisdom. Wealth doesn't equal wisdom. And status doesn't equal morality. So let's talk about the people now. Let's go back to the people who went on the yellow brick road, that were going on this journey to find these things and kind of bring it back and forth, right? So let's start with Dorothy. People's longing for stability and home, right? That's what she represents, is this longing for a stable existence in a place that she knows as home, because that represents the stability. And that's what a lot of people, that's what a lot of us are looking for. That's what most of us are looking for. So I would say individually we're looking for that, but I think collectively we're looking for that as well. It's a lot of uncertainty right now. I'm tired of it. I know you are too. Hang in there. If you're listening to this, thank you for listening to this, because I don't count it, I don't take it for granted. But I want to say to you, hang in there. Hang in there. I know you're tired of being resilient. I know you're tired of employing perseverance, right? Having to do that, I'm saying. Not that you don't have it and that you can't do it. I know you're tired of doing it. But hang in there. Please. But yeah, Dorothy represents our longing for stability and our longing for home, which represents stability. And even if your personal home doesn't represent stability, the word home, right? You can find home almost anywhere, but she's looking for that home. And in this case, and what I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be your home, because some people, you have different stories and journeys, but you know what I mean. You're looking for a home. Some of you want to create your own home. Let's talk about buying homes. We can talk about that, right? Some of you want to buy homes because you want to be able to create an environment that you never got to experience. Keep hope alive. It will happen. But we have to begin to change our mindset. We have to. We have to stop looking to the whiz. Got to stop looking to the wizard. Stop going to see the wizard and go to see the people. Create a community. Create an environment that feels like home. That gives you stability. Gives you encouragement. Gives you opportunity to better yourself. Gives you an opportunity to better someone else. Stop. We're not off to see the wizard. If 2016, actually, if 2008 to now hasn't taught us anything, because we've gotten both sides of the spectrum and the center. I'll call Biden the center. He's very moderate. He's what I would call left center or left moderate, which is leaning to reach over the aisle as those guys, because there's even some of that on the conservative side who would be like right moderate and who they tout themselves as being able to work with each other. But if we haven't learned anything, whether it's somebody who's promoting hope through change in a positive way, or whether it's somebody who's saying, you know, we've been bamboozled and I'm here to take our country back and make it great again for the people who deserve it to be great. And we've determined who deserves that. What we have to learn is we can't look to no leader. I'm sorry. I liked Obama. I still like Obama and Michelle. But we got to stop trying to be off to see the wizard, right? Take that out of your mind. Take that out of your disposition. We ain't off to see the wizard. We off to find the greatness within. Not just us individually, but us collectively. All right, moving on. The scarecrow, critical thinking, right? He didn't believe he had it. What's the scarecrow's job? Post up all day. So he didn't have to think. See, to me, the scarecrow was a prisoner of his circumstance. And so just getting down off the post showed signs of critical thinking. Oh, I don't have to stay up here. I can get down. Oh, wow. And then the Wiz, the scarecrow, you know, he got down because that's Mike. That's Mike. R.I.P. You know what I'm saying? Get on down the road. You feel me? Like he knew, oh man, I can get down. I don't have to stay up here. Okay. All right. Oh, I can get that. Not only can I get down, I can get down. But no, I ain't going to do that. But the scarecrow, critical thinking. First step was just stepping off the post. I encourage anybody listening to this, if you feel stuck, sometimes just stepping down, getting down, and then getting on down. Step down and get on down. But sometimes that's the first step. You haven't had to think critically because you're not in a position for critical thinking. Some of you are working jobs, right? Call centers. It's easy to get a job at a call center, right? For the most part. Very low as far as like you're in a call center, you're answering phones. You're not really in a position where there's a lot of that can keep you from getting that job, even from a clearance standpoint. But are you critically thinking or are you just reading a script? Is my point here. I don't want to stick on that. And you may feel like, man, I'm not that intelligent. And somebody might say, man, like at your community center or church or masjid or whatever, they might say, yo, I see a lot in you. I think you could, do X, Y, Z. You seem to, when we have conversations, you have a passion about this. Why don't you do this? And you're like, I don't think I'm that smart. I don't think I could put anything like that together. And in reality, right, you can. You just got to step out or get down off that post, out of that office, and put yourself in a position. Maybe not leave your job, because you do need a job to be able to live in this world. But do something to move in a direction that engages your mind in a deeper way. The 10-man, empathy-driven policy. That's what I'm going to relate that to, right? All these structures, right? One of the things that I have a pet peeve about is they always make it seem like corporations and the government are just these entities unto themselves. Even with like corporations and LLC, that's like, this is why you get an LLC to cushion yourself away from your business in case somebody wants to sue it or whatever. And they can only sue the LLC, the company, the corporation. They can only sue that. They can't sue you as a person. And so the LLC does become an entity, right? But in reality, when we think about it, anything that's happening negative out of a company, out of a corporation, out of the government is because of a human choice. A person has to make a choice on policy. A person has to make a choice on business ethics. A person has to make a choice, period. The 10-man represents getting a heart and having empathy-driven policy is how I'm connecting that, right? The next thing is the lion, which equals courage to confront institutions in that vein, right? So they say power sees nothing without a demand, right? I think that's how it goes. Again, look up the actual quote. It's a real quote. Power sees nothing without a demand. And this is where courage comes in. So while we want empathy-driven policy, we have to be able to confront the institutions who are not empathetic, who are not being human, who are not acting as if humans are on these boards, who are not acting as if the CEO is a human being, right? Everything can't just be hard, cold, it's business, it's not personal, it's, keep it professional. Because we see that doesn't work both ways. Let's use professional sports, football and basketball, NFL and NBA. When a team ships a player off unceremoniously, that's business. You even hear the player. In most cases, sometimes they're very upset. But a lot of times, that's business. Because it's drilled in their head. It's just the business. I don't take it personal. Yet, they're having to uproot their families most of the time, especially if they're like in the middle of their career or later in their career, and take them to these other cities and reestablish and get their kids in school and all this kind of stuff. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say they make too much money for me to feel sorry for them. And that's fine if you feel that way. But again, we got to stop acting like money takes away the humanity of a person. It shouldn't. It has. And that's probably why you feel that way, because we have this idea that once somebody's making all this money, they're not human anymore. And because we believe that and we project that on them, it becomes a thing that they kind of operate in. And you see the nonsense that they say and do. But we have to have the courage. We have to find the courage within, right? They learn more, just to summarize that part. They learn more on the journey, on the yellow brick road. If anything, they should have had high praise for the yellow brick road, because they discovered more about themselves on the yellow brick road than they did when they got to the Wizard. In fact, it is my belief that in The Wiz and in The Wizard of Oz, on that road is where they were prepped to be able to face, process, and then confront this all-knowing being that they thought was one thing, but turned out to be a pipsqueak. Modern revolution. No place like home. Gratitude. Material security. Fighting for stable housing and economic grounding. Wealth gap context, right? That's what I talked about before. The context in this is top 1% ballooning wealth. That's it. I don't think it's just as simple as people are getting poorer or more poor, if you want to put it that way. It's the problem that the wealthy is just becoming gorged. I mean, they gluttons of wealth. How much money do you need? I mean, honestly, and I know some of you all pseudo libertarians and mostly MAGAs people and a lot of you right-wing Republican conservative people, I know you all have this idea that we should be able to make as much money as possible as we possibly want to make, and there should be no cap or limit, and that's what this is all about, and da-da-da. But how much money do you need to be stable when we got people in this world who are struggling, not because they aren't working? The hardest working people I know are poor people. And then they say, oh yeah, because wealthy people work smarter and their money works for them. No. It's because the poor people are exploited. Their labor is exploited. If they were given a fair salary, if they were given compensation that made sense for the labor that they did to build the wealth of a few families, then it would be more balanced. And those few families wouldn't be hurting. That's not how it works. If you help the masses, you help all. Even wealthy people will be fine. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand what this fixation on keeping things the way they are when there are so many people struggling. Because if you take care of the people struggling, the wealthy people will be fine too. Going inward, like I said, the journey that was really the discovery of all of the things they were searching for. You got to go inward. That's self-reliance. Not on the system, right? Not on wealthy people who own businesses so they can hire you and give you a job so you can barely make it while they are taking crazy vacations on your back, right? Not relying on self-reliance, right? You have what you seek. You got to build civic literacy. Have to. All the thing I'm talking about today is having an understanding of what you see. All you got to do is pay attention and trust your gut. I just told a student I was working with earlier this week that she said, oh, I shouldn't have took classes this semester. I just wasn't in the headspace and I knew it, but I still just wanted to try to press through. And I talked to somebody and they told me I should take the class. And then while I'm taking the class, I should just focus on taking this exam that's going to help me get into the next program or whatever like that. And it didn't work out. She had to withdraw from the class because it was a difficult class and the exam is difficult. And I said to her, I said, listen, hindsight is 20/20. I said, in the future, it's probably better for you to listen to your gut. If you're feeling like you're not going to be able to manage whatever it is you got coming up and do well in school currently is what she's doing, I said, listen to your gut. It wouldn't have hurt you to take a semester off. She had already completed so many classes in a prerequisite stage of her journey towards a program she was looking to get in. She completed all the prereqs and she had completed a significant amount of other general electives that she needed to take too. I said, taking one semester off to kind of regroup and gather yourself, this is the problem. We think we got to keep rushing and hustling and moving and we're behind and we're this. It's like, no, slow down. Listen to your gut. Your gut is telling you, cool out. Listen to your gut. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Now, moving into, you got to build the civic literacy. So track money, open secrets, and look into state systems. All the state stuff and the federal stuff, all that stuff is public record. Start seeing where the money is flowing and going. Start seeing where it's coming from, right? That's the track part. Start seeing where that money is coming from and who's getting that. Then start paying attention to where these officials who don't get elected again or ran through their term, start seeing where they start ending up. If they aren't like 70, chances are they're on a board somewhere. So just check that out. And then you start to pay attention, start to put two and two together, right? Next thing, collectivism. That's true power. This is why they work so hard to keep us separated. That's why I love Fred Hampton, the Rainbow Coalition. But this is why they work so hard to keep us separated. Because collectivism is true power. And the minute we realize that we're better off working together, oh man, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. They might not even they didn't even like nobody talking like this. This is why they call people who talk like this, like when Martin Luther King, he went the poor people's campaign. This is the reason why what happened to him happened. This is why I believe that happened, I'll say, allegedly, right? Because the tide shifted. When he was just promoting desegregation, it was annoying to poor whites, but it was positive. It was like, oh, yeah, and then nonviolence and all. But when he started saying, one, he started talking against the war, right? But it wasn't just that. He was starting to talk in a way that would have ended up unifying. And he had other people kind of moving in that direction. Fred Hampton, he started bringing white, black, Asian, Latino. He started bringing people together and saying, yo, our enemy is not each other. Our enemy is the people who are controlling everything. And while they may look like our white brothers and sisters, our white brothers and sisters don't have anything either. So it's not just a white thing. It's a elite, wealthy elites white thing. That's the real deal. And once we get past all that, we'll be good, right? The system has money, but we have the power. We have the numbers because we have the power. But until we become one, right? It's like the school of fish that looks confused the shark, right? They come together to create this imagery of being a larger entity than they really are, so that the shark is either confused or that the shark gets nervous or scared that they can't face this thing. Like, this thing ain't lunch because it looks like one mass. This thing ain't lunch. I ain't going after this. Or the shark may be daredevil and go for it, and then they get in the midst of it, and because they're so tightly packed together, they confused. They don't know what's going on. They're like, oh my goodness, I don't know where I'm at. And then so either way it works. But that's a collective effort. And we have to see the wealthy elites as sharks. They want to separate us, right? They want to pull us apart and away from the people, right? All power to the people. They want to pull us away from the people. Because when they get us separated, one, there's really nothing we can do. So then we have to go along to get along. And that's what they want, and that's what we've been doing. Let's try something new. Let's stop going along to get along and try something new, something together, something collective, right? So we got to say, right, don't trust the curtain. No political ideology should be over human being in our experience, right? So no political idolatry. So we can't be idolizing these politicians, nor can we idolize the ideologies that come from them. We can't, right? This will help us be able to sift through political theater, right? And we got to start judging these leaders by the actions, not the optics. They may look the part, but we got to look at the things that they're actually doing. Simple as that. And we have to overcome fear, courage, and action. Courage equals repeated practice, organizing, running, voting, showing up. Fear is the fog. Courage is the path out. Courage is the yellow brick road. The lion didn't realize just by stepping out, right, on the yellow brick road and taking that walk forward, he was showing courage. He didn't need to get to the wizard to get courage from the wizard, right? He was building the courage all the way, all the things he faced on that journey. Just getting on the journey, that's where the courage is. And once you realize that, you realize you don't need anybody to give you courage. Power doesn't descend from above. It doesn't. And I'm talking about from a practical, political sense. But power doesn't ascend from above. It rises from within, among us. Internal value, that gives you clarity. Collective authority, that's liberation. Collectivism leads to liberation, right? Because collectivism isn't uniformity, right? It's not just we all do the same thing at the same time. No, collectivism is we all do have our own ways of doing stuff and thinking and believing and faith and all that kind of stuff. But we come together for the things that we intersect with, and we bring our own flavors to it. So we have to remember, collective authority is liberation. Don't wait for the wizard. Brains, heart, courage. We already have it. Let's use it. Thank you for tuning in, beloved. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe on Tucker Media Nexus, YouTube, and I will see you soon. Let's get it.
Lately I've been reminiscing, contemplating on how time played tricks on reality. Need a pro's vision. You was the apple of my eye till I finger pinched it. It never hurt to zoom out and see the bigger picture. What happens when you love your niggas? But the growing pangs of growing up got us all growing different. Always to my own admission. Most times I'm somewhere between delusion and healthy living. You showed your true colors, I still gave forgiveness. But if I showed mine, I get killed by the witness. Thought the glass was half full till you started spilling. Conversations ice cold since I started chilling. The fall off is necessary. The hurt made me legendary. Now these songs be sanctuary to the lovers and friends, the ones who loved and lost and loved and lost and flipped it off. Now they back loving again, at least until the summer begins. We all know how that story ends. Caught up in the cycle, my friends. Talk about the human experience. I pray one day we all get a grip. Until then, we just gotta live. And that don't mean to simply exist. You can't just let the soul disappear. You gotta add your own little twist. Yeah, you can trust in me.